Hey girl, hey, listen, it's not personal. That's a sentence that's easy to say, but hard to reconcile sometimes, especially when the attack feels so personal, right? But sometimes it really isn't personal. I'm Deborah Cheek, founder of Believing Wives, and we are concluding our series on living unoffended with this. It's not personal. Earlier in this series, we defined offense, but let's take a moment to revisit that definition. Offense is defined as annoyance or resentment brought about by a perceived insult to or disregard for oneself or one's standards or principles. There are times when someone does something that we perceive as insulting or disrespectful, but they truly didn't mean it that way. Our background, upbringing, or experiences can sometimes add context to something that just wasn't meant. And in those moments, we have to at least consider that maybe it really isn't personal. You know those moments, like when a group of people are addressed, or it feels as if someone is saying something subliminally. It's tempting to feel that someone is throwing shade at us directly, right? But here's my number one rule for not taking it personally. If I haven't been addressed personally, I will not take it personally. Come on, say it with me. If I have not been addressed personally, I will not take it personally. There's even scripture that backs up this concept that we don't need to take everything personally. Ecclesiastes 7:21 tells us, "Do not take to heart everything people say." We live in a time when people are easily offended, and honestly, overly offended. And refusing to take a lot of things personally can keep our hearts free. So don't let what someone said find rest in your heart. Don't take it personally. But what about when we aren't talking in generalities? What if it's your spouse? What if they have said something harsh, done something wrong, or made a bad choice? Here's the truth. Even though it affects you, it's not really about you. Their choices are made based on their beliefs, how they've been shaped, and what they think. I read this quote by Mark Chernoff that says, "Note to self, even when it seems personal, rarely do people do things because of you. They do things because of them." You know this is true. You may not be able to control all the things people say and do to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. We can decide not to be reduced by what people say. People are fighting internal battles. Their own shame, disappointment, and conflict may be the driving force behind their anger or lashing out. I'm not trying to excuse their behavior. Wrong is wrong. I'm just offering a way for you to process it so that offense does not take root in your heart. It's not personal. But does that stop it from feeling personal? No. So what do you do when it feels personal? What if it actually is personal? Because sometimes it is. I think there are a couple of things we can do. Three things I think we can do when the attack feels personal. Number one, step back. Whether that's taking a walk, leaving the room, or going for a drive, you're going to need a moment to process your feelings. We are closer to our husbands than anyone else, and sometimes that makes everything seem personal. We have to take a moment so that we don't lash out in anger and retaliation. Taking the step back helps us to remember who this man is to us, what he means, and it might even prevent us from retaliating without thinking it through. So, my first piece of advice is take a step back. Second, I want to invite you to dig in. This is where you have to dig a little deeper to determine what the issue really is and who the issue belongs to. Is this an issue between the two of you, or is it something that one of you needs to work on? Is it something that you need to do independently? Is it something that your spouse needs to do independently? Don't carry blame or shame that is not yours. But at the same time, you've got to own your stuff. Is there anything that you can use from what was said or done? Is there anything constructive that you can bring out of it? Is there any truth that needs to be addressed? We have to dig in to get to the truth behind what was said or what was done. The third and final step is this: do the work. After you address an issue, there must be effort to correct it. Now we have to be careful here. We can't fix people. We can just fix problems. You can't change your husband. I can't change my husband. But what we can do is create an atmosphere that's conducive to change. He still has to do the work that change requires, and you still have to do the work that change requires. But an atmosphere can be created and cultivated that makes it a little easier to do so. You have to do your part, and he has to do his. Are there questions that need to be asked? Conversations that need to be held? This is where we have to put on our big girl underoos and take the necessary steps to move forward. Earlier in this video, we read Ecclesiastes 7:21, and I want us to read verse 22 here. It says, "For many times also your own heart has known that even you have cursed others." I love that this verse reminds us that we also mess up. It's easy to take our husband's actions personally and our actions lightly, but that shouldn't be the case. We both have issues to address, traumas to heal from, and strides to make. Sometimes we're doing things that they take personally. The shoe can fit on either foot. I'm encouraging you to keep your heart free and light. Process things with God. Move forward as He directs you. We can't take things personally and continue to live in offense. I hope that you will continue to fight against offense in your heart. If you need to, revisit some of the videos I've shared on this topic. Do whatever you need to do to make the changes that will have you living an unoffended life. Because changed wives change lives. I'll see you soon.